Hi, Joe. Hi, Claudia. Hi, Paul. Hi, CDD. So welcome to the Sunday night non-duality talk. And before I start, a few things I have to remember to say. Hi, Donnie. Yeah, so on Wednesday nights I have a group chat kind of drop-in thing. That's on my Patreon. You have to subscribe to that. That's Wednesday nights at the same time as this, 8:30 Spain time. Hi, Richard. Hey, Will. I have a talk. Hey, Keel. I have a talk in April in London, a weekend. There's a link there in the description. I also do private Skype sessions for anybody who would like to do that. And what else? Oh yeah, if you'd like to donate to this talk, that would be great. I'd be really grateful for that. It really helped me out, even if it's just a couple of pounds. If you can be bothered to donate on PayPal, because I don't have any monetization on my channel, so that would be really helpful. I think that's it. Hi, Josie. Hi, Sana. Oh yeah, we had a webinar yesterday all afternoon. It was really good. So I'm going to do another one on the last Saturday of February of next month. So I'm going to do that again because that was really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Went by very quickly. So, non-duality. Which is just a word. Oh, thanks, Josie. Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. It's really good. Non-duality is just a word. It doesn't actually have any meaning. You can't really, there's nothing that can touch what has been spoken of here. There's no word that can describe it because it's just what's happening, and you can't label just what's happening because it's happening before you're even able to label it. It is the labeling of it. It is the plant, the labeling, the words. You can't name it because it's just life happening. It doesn't have a direction or an edge or a beginning or an end or anything that can be got hold of as a description, and definitely not as a prescription. It can't be get hold of by the mind. The mind just can't work it out. And the story of the mind comes from this contracted sense of separation. And this contracted sense, hi Ramona, this contracted sense is just what's happening. It's not somebody who's contracted. It's the appearance of a dream of somebody. It isn't a person. It just has the story it's a person. It thinks it's a person. It's like a misunderstanding that's happened in the body and has labeled itself myself. And it lives in its dream. It lives in a dream of itself, in its stories of its past, its future, its job, its relationships, its self, how it feels about itself, and it just lives in this dream. But it's not a person. And this apparent appearance of separation is what causes the human most of the suffering, pretty much all of the suffering. The human can suffer, but but without that sense of separation, there's no story around it. There's nothing that sticks to it. It's just immediate suffering, but not as in suffering in time. And how am I going to get rid of this suffering? And now I'm a bad person. I need to be a better person. The person's always trying to be a better person, a more lovable person, a more likable person. But all those stories that happen around it are just illusory. And yet they are happening in this. It is aliveness appearing as the story of me. This story can't resolve the appearances. It can't resolve the dichotomy that it seems to live in the illusion of separation. It cannot become unseparate by its own dream of having free will in order to do so. It's on a loop of itself, seemingly. Hi, Tracy. Did you? Well, that's okay. That's okay. Hi, Moksha. And it's not even non-loop. A loop is just a description. It's not really, it's not a thing. It just appears like that. It appears as a loop, as a dog chasing its tail, trying to get out of itself, trying to get away from it, especially in this subject. In this subject, the sense of self believes it can get out of itself. But there's nowhere for it to go because it's just an appearance that can't move. It just appears. And it can't move out of it because there is no out. It can't move into it because there's no in. The whole thing is a dream bubble. A dream, not a bubble, but just a dream, just a dream. An apparent reality called me. So it runs around in its dream, trying to make the dream better, trying to get out of the dream. When it has no free will or choice of its own. It just appears that it has. Hi, Ella. But it hasn't. It lives in the dream of free willing choice. Where could it possibly go to? Where could it move to? It's always moving to an imaginary story. It's like it's got this story of something outside of what's happening and it's trying to move towards it, but you can't find outside of this, only in the imagination. It lives in its imagination. Imagination of something outside of this, or something inside of this. All imaginary. And yet it can't help but do what it does. It can't help but have this apparent movement towards something that isn't. But it really believes there is something. It really believes there is this thing called freedom for itself. So it lives in this impossible dream of freedom, never realizing, and it won't realize it, never realizing that there is only freedom. And the freedom I'm speaking of here is freedom from that dream. When that dream is no longer there, it's freedom from that dream. Then there's just the natural free flow of this boundless appearance. Freedom from this burden, this apparent burden of feeling like you are somebody. When you're not anybody, you're not that one, you're not that dream of somebody. You're just the free flow of the human being, whatever that appears as. The me imagines that the free flow of the human being is some sort of blissful state or some understanding that I've got there. It's the end of getting anywhere. It's the undoing of getting somewhere. It's the unknowing of wanting to know. The ungetting. Nothing is any longer tied down to a concept or an idea. Those are just, they just go, and they're seeing that they were just concepts and ideas about being a person, about finding something, about getting somewhere, about being born, about dying. It's too simple. It's too simple to grasp as a concept. It's ungraspable. Hi, Iden. Turn this up a bit. I seem to associate liberation with a general positivity towards life. Could there be liberation and with it the same feeling of resentment from life that was always here? I don't think so. I don't think so. The story of the person drops away. The whole thing is no longer a reality. Arise in the moment, in a situation perhaps that's happening. I'm not sure if it's resentment though. Possibly. But something that was always there, no. No, I can't. That's not true here. And I can only speak from here, you know. That's all I can do. But it's hard for me to imagine that resentment from the past can still be held, because all that resentment is within the story of me. It could happen to somebody, I don't know. It depends on their conditioning. It depends on the conditioning of the Oh, thank you, Ramona. Depends on the condition. I don't know. I just don't know. No, I would not say that is true here. Because now it's really clear that memories here are just pictures. And what the pictures appear as now aren't necessarily the pictures that appeared about the same event a year ago or 5 years ago. They could be adjusted and rearranged. I don't know. The brain just does this thing with the memory. That's just really clear here that they're just pictures. They're just pictures. And, you know, this Lisa can talk about those memories, but it's also known that they just don't stick. They have no stickiness anymore. It says, why does it feel so real that the person chooses and done things and does things? How is it we are not the doers? The idea of doing is another concept that arises in the mind. Doing happens, but the feeling of I am the doer is an illusory idea that seems to appear, because usually we do things before even the thought appears that I did it. We just get up off the chair. We just go into the kitchen. It just happens on its own. And that happens before there's any idea of a person choosing to do it. And any other kind of choices, like choosing, like I've been looking at hostels today, where to go and stay, backpackers. It seems as if I'm choosing, but it's not. Choosing is just happening. It's like that one, I look on the internet, oh no, I like that one better. But there's nobody doing that. It's just happening on its own. And it happens on its own. And the choice is made before there's even the thought of who is the chooser. The idea of a chooser always comes afterwards, or manifests in the idea of me, in the dream of me. That's the only place the idea of me choosing seems to appear. It's a question that arises, who's choosing? But it's irrelevant to the actual choosing. The choosing just seems to happen on its own. I don't know if you've noticed that. Like when you're choosing, shall I have this for dinner or this for dinner? It's very doubtful that there's something there going, well, who's choosing that? And if there is, that's an idea that's appearing. It's not actually anything to do with the choice in itself. There's usually a movement from the human called preference. There's a preference that happens in the human, in the individual human. Each human has individual preferences based on, I don't know, conditioning or just whatever. Just there's a preference. Some people like tea more than coffee, or some people like, I don't know, different things, you know. It's just the way it seems to be with the human. Even dogs, you know, dogs are picky. Who's in the dog choosing? There's no one in the dog choosing. Give dog two choices of two foods. It's going to pick one over the other because it has a preference, but there's nothing going on in the dog saying who's choosing. It's just choosing it. The idea of free will just appears as a concept in the mind, as thought. It appears as thought, as a concept. But that's all it is. It isn't the actual choice itself. It's the concept of choice. Those two things are very different. Today, I choose Earl Grey over English breakfast. But there wasn't anything there going, who's choosing? The choice would be happening on its own. But the construct says, who's choosing? Claudia, I heard somewhere that science has established that this decision is made before we think we made it. Funny. Yeah, that seems to have been proven. Though I haven't actually read the report, but I've heard it, that it's been said that happens, like a split second. And often choices are made without even thinking that I chose it. They're just made. It just happens on its own. Josie. Lisa, wondering, all the ideas about everyone being a reflection of yourself, shadow work, etc., would it become all irrelevant at one point? Don't know. That would, the reflection of yourself, you wouldn't know that. It would have to be some sort of belief happening that everyone is a reflection of yourself and they are like reflecting your shadow. What's actually happening is just life happening, and all those other things are just beliefs happening. And then there's the center of all those beliefs called me, and they're my beliefs and I believe them. So yes, it would become utterly irrelevant if there's no one there having that belief. Yeah. Thanks, SS. Donnie, what do you think is our true reality? Seems to depend on how we see the world, events, etc. Would you say it is really freedom from the me story? Okay, let's go back to the first bit. What do you think of our true reality? There is only what's happening. There is no true reality. That is the true reality. Is this living room the true reality? Or will I go in the kitchen later? Will the kitchen be the true reality? Our reality, there would have to be the idea of an our reality. There is just what's happening, and it's just in the free fall. And in that free fall, there's the dream of our. You can't find our, there's only just other bodies, but we have the belief that those bodies are our. We don't really know what our means. We assume it's that we are all persons and we all have this one reality. But you can't find our. You can only find really what's happening. And that can't be found as something. And it seems to depend on how we see the world, events, etc. Well, that's just what would be going on, yeah. It's just what's going on. Would you say it is really freedom from the me story? No. No. There is no freedom from the me story. The me story is separation. and its aliveness appearing as separation. But there is no freedom for the me, because there's no freedom for anybody. There's only just what's happening, and that is in free fall. It's wild and unbound and just appearing. Has no, can't get hold of it. It says that takes away a lot of guilt and blame. Yeah, guilt is a really useless emotion. Horrible emotion. Oof. Yeah. And there's no one, you know, and even, no, I'm not going to go there. That's okay. Okay, yes, much simpler. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Joe, can you jump in the same river twice? Yes. I have. I know what you mean, though. That's all right. See, the freedom from the me story would still be a story. The story of freedom, when it is freedom appearing as a story, there is no freedom for anybody. This is completely intangible, ineffable. That's why it's so damn frustrating for that concept, that contracted sense of self. It's so frustrating for it because it's trying to pin it down as something. And the freedom is, well, it's what's happening, and it's the freedom from that bounded sense of looking for it. It goes from a sense of being bound to the boundless. Hi, Kari. Oh, thank you. Can you speak more about non-doership? Funny, some of you today asked me about doership. Doership, non-doership. Let's look at the word doership first. The idea of that there is a doer, that there is somebody going like this with the hand. Somebody's doing that. I'm doing that. This idea that I'm doing it. That would be doership. It's taking on the idea of I'm doing it. It's believing in that what happens, which is doing, the apparent doing, is taking on that as a doer. I'm doing it. But I don't know if you've noticed that the idea of I'm doing it is just an idea. You can't actually find a doer. You can't find the one that's doing it. You can only find it as thought, and if that thought is kind of causing suffering because I'm not doing it properly, I should be doing it. All those thoughts create a suffering contracted feeling of not good enough. So non-doership is the doing without the doer. It's just the happening of doing. The making of the cup of tea is happening. It's being done, as you could say, it's being done. But the idea of the doer is literally an energetic, psychological, emotional construct that appears, that says it's the doer. So non-doership is the opposite of that. It's just what is happening in freefall. There would be no non-doer. The apparent appearance of a doer suddenly doesn't become a non-doer. It's just the end of the idea of doership or a doer or a person. Donnie. I guess I'm trying to imagine the total dropping away of a me and how different reality would seem for the me. Yeah, it's the opposite, Donnie. It wouldn't seem like anything for the me because the me would evaporate in a puff of non-existent smoke and they'd never been real. It's like waking up from a dream of being somebody, but you don't wake up. You don't wake up. It's just the end of a dream. It's the end of it. And that can't be imagined because it can't be described. And in saying that, I'm not saying that there's some sort of wow specialness or anything. It's so ordinary and simple, but extraordinary because it's suddenly revealed that it's this timeless appearance. And it was always this timeless appearance. But the sense of self made it into something else. You like quoting songs, don't you, Joe? Or putting a spin on songs. Kari. Speakers teach there is no free will, that everything is just happening. Does this apply to each small action or thought as well? Yes. Yes. Try stop doing the action. Try stopping the thought. Try stopping yourself from getting up off the chair. The body will just do it. The body will just think. The body will just speak and drink and do all that. Everything is just what's happening. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, good. Tracy. And is the end of me what Christians think of heaven? I think the Christian heaven, isn't it like meeting Jesus or something? And all your dead family? I think that's what the Christian heaven is. I don't know, I've never been a Christian, but I have this, what I know from my very little knowledge is that they have this idea of up there with a God, and he will welcome you into his paradise called heaven, and the rest of you bad people will go to hell, where you belong. No, heaven. It's completely beyond description, Tracy. It's just this. But it's so utterly whole and complete. It's everything that you think you're looking for. But the person thinks it's looking for something that isn't this. Moksha. Perhaps the person is not in the doing, but more experienced in the thinking or feeling afterwards about it. I should not have done that, is blaming myself for something I did not do. Yeah, usually. Yeah, the action happens, you lose your temper at your mum or your dad or something. And then afterwards, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I did that. I'm a bad person. Da 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 da. The thought might come, Maybe I shouldn't have shouted at my mum. Okay, I'm going to go and apologize. But this sort of self-blame thing, you know, the kind of, I did that, is the personal apparent experience of the personal. Kari. Thoughts come from where? The same place that this computer's coming from, Kari. The same place where this body's appearing from. Nothing. Nothing. It's nothing as everything. Thoughts are not what you think they are, says Joe. Tracy, I'm trying to understand eternity without me. Yeah, I know. It's just like, yeah, you can't understand what it means to be sitting on a chair. It's just sitting on a chair. It's just writing those words. It's just reading the words. It's just the light. It's just the walls. It's just this. Can't get hold of it. It's impossible. Why can you get hold of this? It's impossible. You just can't. So trying to understand this is impossible. The idea of understanding it is just the idea appearing of trying to understand it. It's a thought that happens. The sense of self happens. Body happens. It's just coming out of nothing. It's just nothing appearing as this. Tracy, I get no help. I think you probably meant something else there. This is not for anybody. Somebody is an appearance in this. This is not for that one, and this one is not for that. It's all the one appearance, the whole thing. Except for the appearance of the me can be pointed to as being an illusory dream. It appears real, it feels real, is there, it happens, apparently happens, but it's not true. It's not true that there's a person there that is separate. CDD. Maybe the sudden revelation will occur spontaneously at the same point that the psyche, not the illusory me, is done with frustration and suffering. It's possible. It's possible. Yeah. I hear stories of people who really suffer in prisons and concentration camps and things like that. I don't know if any of this is true, by the way. This is just what I heard. That there are these spontaneous sort of awakenings, like just seeing that this whole idea of being somebody just falls away. Yeah. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. This life just appears as it appears, and it can appear in so many possible ways. One way or the other, that dream will end. One way or the other. I guess extreme suffering, like those poor people in concentration camps and places like that, that it's so intense. I guess it's like when the body is physically dying, the appearance will be so intense that um, that illusion is possible that it could just fall away. But then again, it's possible that it could just fall away in the middle of having a nice dinner. People have glimpses in the most ordinary circumstances. They can just be walking along and boop, it's not there. Oh, it's not there. I hear it all the time. People have glimpses. People have glimpses all over the place. Just suddenly not there. Then, sometimes it comes back and can cause all sorts of problems. Mm. Oh, thanks, Josie. Adrenaline, says Joe. Yeah, I guess people do dangerous sports, don't they, for that adrenaline rush? And in that moment, there can be, I guess they do it because there's like this, they're just, as they say, it's a popular saying, they're in the moment. What they're saying is that there's no suffering story going on because, abseiling down a 100-foot cliff, there's no room for it, is there? So they're getting kind of a break from it, really, in that adrenaline rush. Being in the zone, yeah, in the zone, what they call in the zone. Yeah, it's like having a short holiday from that battering ram of the mind, the me. So quiet on the Western Front tonight. Everyone being silenced. No questions. It's nice. Ramona, it does seem like listening to this kind of relaxes the body in this and brings out the conditioning of the person, like guilt, shame, fear. There seems to be cause and effect there, and it happening to the person again. Yeah, well, it can come and go, can't it? You know, it's like, yeah, the message kind of, there's nowhere left for that. All the thoughts and concepts and everything just seem to like, it kind of got nowhere to go. And they come rushing in with something. Me. What about me? Then, you know, conjures up some story, and it's just the way it seems to happen. It does kind of relax the body. That story is so strong, you see. It's really believed, the story of me. And all those movies around it of different parts of my life. You know, it's all the one dream of me here and all these separate little movies called memories and concepts and ideas. All the one thing, the one dream happening. But you can't actually find any of it. Because when something happens to the human, it's usually immediate, isn't it? Like someone, like you get a big bill, it's just like, oh shit. Or, you know, or something. It's usually immediate. The sticky me will make a story out of that. Wow, so cute. Oh, it's a reply to Don't Panic. When I see the words Don't Panic, I always think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Ramona, yes, true. It's like the person getting robbed with a gun against the head, doing everything to stay alive. Yeah, that story just wants to stay alive, you know, it's been there for so long, this sense of self, you know, it's just really is very stubborn. But that's just the way it appears, even though the idea of stubbornness is an idea, really. Because really it's just what's happening. I'm going to take my car, my children, I am this, keep me alive. But then the emotions present themselves at me. Well, that's a question. But then the emotions present themselves at me? No, me just has a story about the emotions. My emotions, my car, my child, my life. CBD, yeah, the story is a royal pain in the ass. Yeah. Yeah. It says, so if the person is not there, can suffering come back? Not in that way, no. It's not a personal suffering anymore. Sure, but sure, negative emotions can happen, you know, like if your mom dies or something, that can really hurt. You know, my mom was in hospital like last week, and that was like, whew, you know, felt as a bit of a shock. She's all right, by the way. But the story, the suffering of the story of me, no. No. Because there's nothing there to suffer in that way. That whole story, that whole construct, that whole apparent dream of a life just completely falls away. And all that's left is immediacy. Absolute immediacy of whatever that is. And that's not there personally. is just appearing. Very kind of liquidy-like. Just morphing and changing into different circumstances and things and feelings and thoughts and light and air, and just changing, all very liquid. Not actually moving in time, just remolding itself so immediately that nothing can get hold of that. But that kind of fluidity of this can also appear as a story of a stationary sense of self. Funny. For me, it's memories that cause most suffering. How do I let go of those stories of the past? I don't know. It's because you believe they're your stories. You believe that you did that you are somehow responsible. That they're your memories. But they're actually just pictures appearing of an apparent life of Donnie. But they don't belong to anybody. It's just this sense of self claims those memories as mine. It can't let go of them because those stories give it life, give it validity. My stories are important, even though I would want to let go of them. But even that's a story as well, wanting to let go of them. It lives in that total dream. Lives in that total dream of me, my stories, and I want to get rid of them. The whole thing is being dreamt up. And even the idea that it's real is being dreamt up. The whole thing. All there is sitting in a room. None of it's real. None of that is real. Mona. I mean, the emotions present themselves as, who am I? Guilt is who I am. Fear is who I am. Just like the car and the children are trying to sort of stay alive. Yeah. Uses all these stories, give it validity. Who am I? Another story, another thought, another dream. Guilt is who I am. Guilt is who I am, another story. Fear is who I am. Fear and I, another story. All happening and believed in and felt and suffered in. But they're not, none of it's real. It just feels real. Kari, is life in a way predestined as conditioning and DNA affects our actions and the outcome without our will? I have no idea what this is. I cannot say what this is. It appears that there's DNA and conditioning and it affects things, but I cannot say if that's predestined. It just appears this way. It's so complete in its appearance and it's miraculous, all the way down to DNA, all the way down to the molecular level, the quantum level, and then out into space with stars and nebulas and quasars. And can that be predestined? I don't know. It's just freaking miraculous. I don't know anything about predestined. It just is. It just is. Predestined would just be a theory put on top of what's happening. Ramona, it's as if they present themselves heavier to keep me in. That would be another idea. The whole thing, Ramona, is utterly illusory. The whole thing. I can already hear you say it's a story. Yeah. Exactly. What is this heavier? What is this keeping me in the whole thing? It's a delusion. It's a deluded appearance, deluding itself that it's somebody. Josie, so the whole idea of responsibility is BS. I'm kind of cautious to say something about that because it sounds like I'm saying, well, screw it, there's no responsibility, so I can do what I want. But that would be another me idea, because who would do that? I would say the whole idea of there being somebody responsible is BS. CDD, in my mind, the memories are there, but it's the hidden, ingrained internal programming and conditioning that apparently make me suffer. It's the me, it's the sense of me that suffers because it thinks it's my conditioning. It's my conditioning. There's still conditioning here of a sort, but there's no neurosis around it happening. This body is, it's been around quite a while and it's definitely conditioned in certain ways, but it's just free to be in its conditioning. It's just free to be like that. And it's also free for me to say, actually, maybe I should change that. Okay, I'm going to not do that. But it's just happening on its own. It's the sense of it's my conditioning, is the suffering. Doesn't mean that the human won't change that conditioning if it's not healthy for it. It definitely will do that. But it's the sense of it's my conditioning, which is the suffering. I'm deluded, says CD. Well, it's a delusion. It's an illusory delusion. It's an illusion. No, hang on, let's get this right. It's an illusion that is deluded. It's deluded that it is a person because it's not a person. It's a dream of a person. It's a dream, I am a person. And I am separate. When that sense of self drops away, it's just separation just goes. The whole thing wasn't real. I synchronize it all. Knowing is the essential element of experience because it's always present. Is what is that knowing element? Okay. Knowing is the essential element of experience. Okay, so let's think of an example. So you're drinking a really good cup of coffee and you're just enjoying drinking that coffee. It's like the best coffee ever. Do you need to know that? Or is it happening? The idea of experience is put on top of the actual enjoyment of the coffee. I'm experiencing it. I am experiencing it. But where is that I experiencing it? It's just this thing, this idea, this concept, this construct of me. The enjoying of it is already happening. And on top of that, we say, I have to experience this to experience it. I have to know this to experience it. That is still in the dream. I am experiencing it. No, it's just what's happening. The amazing coffee is being enjoyed. There's no need to know about that. It's just what's happening. Abseiling down a cliff. Do you need to know you're abseiling down a cliff, or is the abseiling happening? The idea of I am knowing it comes on top of the event or after the event. Because it's always present. The sense of self is always present. Seems like it's always present. Anyway, it's not always present. It's present sometimes more than others during the day. Is what is that knowing element? No. No. What is doesn't need to know it is, because it is. It's already is. It doesn't need to know it. It just is. That would be saying that there's something in this that's separate from it that knows it. Thoughts are the thought of duality. They're a thought. Okay, I'm just going to take these last ones. Here, although neurosis can go when me goes, they can stay, I guess. Dogs have trauma. Yeah, trauma can stay in the body, but there's nobody having a neurosis about it. It's just trauma in the body. And then the human, in its natural movement, will go to a trauma therapist. Say, help me get this trauma out of my body. But there's no story about it happening. The neurosis about it, like, I'm a horrible person, I've got trauma. What do people think of me? I'm this, I'm that. I blame that person. It's because of that person. There's this and this and this that I have trauma. This whole story around trauma. Trauma would just be happening. Yeah. You know, like somebody who's been in the services, you know, may have PTSD. And even if there's no sense of self there, that PTSD is most likely still going to be there. But then that person will just go and get some trauma therapy. Because, you know, if you've got a cut finger and it's bleeding like crazy and hurting, there's not going to be that thought there, well, no one's having the cut finger, so da da da. No, the body will just go and put a bandage on it. CDD. I wonder if I must be royally selfish, and that is why my me is so stuck on itself. The me's, this sense of me, its absolute base setting is selfishness. Not as in it's mean and, you know, and greedy, not in that way, more like it's just completely focused on itself. Its whole setting is itself. It's totally focused around itself. Yeah. As a dream. Tracy, so energy is unconditional love, true meaning of God. This is all aliveness. It's a kind of energy, but I can't say what that is. And it's unconditional, and it's stunning and beautiful, and it is love. But I don't like to use the word love too much because it's very hard for the human to separate love, the feeling of love, with absolute giving. Absolute giving. Unconditionally giving everything. Birth, death, love, war, hate, sunshine, everything. Richard, so there is no registering of what is. There is just what is. Yes. Yes, you can't register it. It's beyond registering. It's totally in free fall. Totally, absolutely in free fall. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, my time is up. And thank you very much for joining me. I enjoyed it very much, and I enjoyed really great questions and comments and your company. And I'll see some of you on Wednesday. And apart from that, I will be here again this time next week. Okay, lots of love, everyone. Bye. Thanks, guys.